Welcome to UzReport World News Broadcasting with the latest news from Uzbekistan and around the world. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev visited the Republican Specialized Scientific and Practical Medical Center of Hematology on May 14. The center specializes in providing hematological and transfusiological care, prevention and treatment of oncohematological diseases, and conducting research in this area. The complete recovery of patients with acute lymphoblastic leukemia currently stays at 70–85%.
On February 10th last year, Mirziyoyev inked a decree aiming at the development of hematological and transfusiological services, supporting people with oncohematological and difficult-to-treat diseases. Over $122 million have to be allocated from the budget for the development of the hematology by 2024, according to the decree. At the expense of these funds, hospitals ought to be provided with medical preparations and reagents. Work is currently underway to strengthen the material and technical base of the hematology service to improve the system of early detection and treatment of diseases. On Friday, Mirziyoyev inspected created conditions in the center. It has 3 buildings with 260 beds. Currently, 210 patients, including 42 children, are undergoing treatment here. Mirziyoyev instructed to construct a new building for the center, to create a separate center for pediatric oncohematology using the experience of the Russian Medical Research Center named at Rogachev. The new center is to perform surgeries on blood stem cell transplantation. We have adopted dozens of resolutions to improve hematological care, but that's not enough. I came here today to create even more conditions for you, so that the patients get back on their feet as quickly as possible, and to strengthen the guarantees of treatment. You are all my children. Your smile should bring happiness to your parents. We will try to do everything necessary for your treatment, said Mirziyoyev. He also congratulated the children and their mothers on the holiday of Ramadan Hayat. Do not despair, for you are not alone. We will support you. We will build a new center to improve the sphere's capabilities. It will provide conditions for mothers and for the education of children, and the treatment will also change. Most of all, I want you to quickly recover and return home to your family, he added.
On the same day, President Shavkat Mirziyoyev received the Prime Minister of Tajikistan, Kokhir Rasulzoda, who paid a working visit to participate in the next meeting of the Joint Intergovernmental Commission. The Uzbek president noted the current high level of interaction achieved thanks to the political will and decisive actions of the leaders of the two countries. Kokhir Rasulzoda expressed deep gratitude to the President of Uzbekistan for the warm welcome and conveyed sincere greetings and best wishes from the President of Tajikistan, Emomali Rahmon. The meeting focused on the implementation of promising projects in the field of trade, mechanical engineering, energy, mining, agriculture, and others. The Prime Minister of Tajikistan stressed that he will make every effort to jointly prepare the upcoming summit of the leaders of the states, as well as to ensure the deepening of full-scale partnership between them. The Uzbek government plans to uphold at least 2 more conventions of the International Labour Organization, such as Convention 187 on fundamentals promoting occupational safety and health, as well as Convention 183 on the revision of the 1952 Convention on Maternity Protection. So far, the Republic has ratified 16 ILO conventions, including 8 major ones.
Uzbekistan's labor minister noted that in partnership with the International Labour Organization, the minister plans to expand the scope of monitoring compliance with labor rules in other sectors of the economy, including the construction industry, sericulture and public catering. According to the recent data, the number of citizens' complaints over forced labor during the 2020 cotton harvest decreased by 40% compared to 2019. Some 231 Uzbek officials were brought to responsibility under forced labor cases over the past year.
It is excellent news that the government of Uzbekistan has decided to ratify 2 new ILO conventions, one on maternity protection and another on occupational safety and health. Both these conventions are highly relevant and impacts all of us. Maternity protection not only ensures a woman's equal access to employment, it also ensures the continuation of often vital income which is necessary for the well-being of her entire family. Likewise, the right to a safe and healthy working environment should be recognized as a fundamental human right. I feel very positive and optimistic about the ongoing labor market reforms in Uzbekistan. The 2 new conventions is great news for women and men of this country.
Uzbekistan has obliged social networks and global internet companies to process the personal data of citizens of Uzbekistan on servers located on the territory of the country. They have already been sent the relevant letters, the press service of the lower house of the Oli Majlis has reported.
Such as Facebook, Google, Mail.ru, Microsoft Skype, Telegram, WeChat, Tencent, TikTok, Twitter, Yandex, when processing personal data of Uzbek citizens, are required to ensure their collection, filing, and archiving of technical servers that are physically located on the territory of the country. This means that if social networks and internet companies intend to conduct legal activities in Uzbekistan, they must place their equipment on the territory of Uzbekistan, or, in accordance with the established procedure, they can be brought to administrative or criminal responsibility. These norms, according to the legislation, aim at ensuring the personal rights and freedoms of citizens guaranteed by the Constitution. They could also protect personal data of Uzbek citizens from cyber attacks.
Uzbekistan is planning to receive the Sinovac coronavirus vaccine through COVAX program. The vaccine is produced by China's Sinopharm, reported the Uzbek anti-coronavirus staff expert Nurmat Otabekov at a press conference. The country has also ordered 1 million doses of Sputnik V. 100,000 doses were delivered, and this would be enough to vaccinate 50,000 people. The remaining doses is planned to be offered to risk groups. Uzbekistan started the mass vaccination on April the 1st. The country is using Uzbek, Chinese, AstraZeneca and Sputnik V vaccines. The German government is intending to allocate 61 million euros to Uzbekistan this year, including 23.5 million euros in soft loans and 37.5 million euros in grants and technical assistance. The agreement was reached at a virtual conference organized by the Ministry of Investment and Foreign Trade on financial and technical cooperation between Uzbekistan and Germany. Uzbekistan's government debt continues to rise. It almost doubled in 2 years. By the end of 2020, the country's total external debt amounted to $33.8 billion, which was 58.6% of GDP. So far, Uzbekistan has received $250 million loan from the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, 1.8 billion euros from EBRD. At a video conference held on May 12, Shavkat Mirziyoyev spoke about the external debt of Uzbekistan. Everyone says that our external debt is growing. If we did not take money from abroad, would we be able to develop our economy to such a level, said the president. According to him, loans from foreign financial institutions and international banks are directed to the development of the economy and people. Shavkat Mirziyoyev said that 50% of the cash receipts of 4,200 projects implemented through loans in the amount of $1.5 billion within the framework of regional programs over 3 years are turned around outside banks. And for 2,600 projects worth over $1 billion this year, 80% of the proceeds are in non-bank circulation.
India's COVID-19 infections crossed 24 million on Friday as the country's outbreak stretches into neighboring Nepal. A highly transmissible variant of the virus has wreaked havoc across India's rural areas, where 2/3 of the country's population have limited access to health care. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said his government was on a war footing to contain the infections. On Friday, Eid celebrations marking the end of Ramadan were subdued as most states imposed lockdowns and closed down mosques. Modi has come under increasing pressure to impose a national lockdown as the variant first detected within India's borders spreads around the globe. Its northern neighbor Nepal has seen 57 times more COVID-19 infections compared to a month ago. As the country's death toll surges, officials in Kathmandu are scrambling to cremate bodies and create space near riverbanks for funerals. The fresh outbreak there has also led to a shortage of hospital beds and medical supplies. Nearly half of the COVID tests in Nepal last week came back positive, according to the Red Cross, but only 1% of the population has been fully vaccinated. The country's prime minister has been forced to step down over his response to the crisis. Several countries have extended their travel bans on India to include Nepal, as well as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh.
I want to congratulate Elise Stefanik and welcome her to the leadership team. In an internal party vote on Friday, U.S. congressional Republicans picked a representative fiercely loyal to Donald Trump for a leadership role, replacing another who'd voiced unvarnished criticism of the former president.
I also want to thank President Trump for his support. He is a critical part of our Republican team.
New York Representative Elise Stefanik was once seen as a moderate, but swung decisively toward the divisive former president, loudly defending him at his impeachment trials. Her elevation to serve as House Republican Conference Chair signals Trump's enduring grip on the party.
I support President Trump. Voters support President Trump. He is an important voice in our Republican Party, and we look forward to working with him.
She replaces Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, who broke ranks after a violent mob of Trump supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol in January. Cheney blamed Trump for the deadly riot and for spreading the baseless claims of election fraud that inspired it.
Remaining silent and ignoring the lie emboldens the liar.
She was ejected from her position earlier this week, but did not relent.
We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president. Thank you.
Our conference is incredibly unified right now.
For unified leadership.
Unified in working with President Trump.
Republicans on Friday cheered Stefanik's victory as a sign of party unity heading into the 2022 midterm elections.
From surging prices in the US to a looming population crisis in China, this is the week in numbers. 0.8% may not sound much, but the monthly figure is the highest rate of inflation in the US in almost 12 years. A 10% surge in used car prices was one factor. The news spooked stock markets around the world, but most economists still bet it's a passing blip, not a sign that prices are set to spiral upwards. 1.41 billion is the population of mainland China. That's a gain of over 5% since the last census 10 years ago, but the slowest rate of increase since proper surveys began. With a fertility rate of 1.3 children per woman in 2020, China is on par with rapidly aging societies like Japan and faces a real worry over how to pay for its older folk. 4.99 trillion yen, or over $45 billion, was the annual net profit at Japanese investment giant SoftBank, driven by soaring values for its stakes in tech firms. No wonder CEO Masayoshi Son sounded bullish.
So far, we have been continuously finding wonderful AI firms. As long as we find such good companies which are worth investing, and as long as our money lasts, we would like to continue investing.
Just last year, the firm posted a record loss. Now, the new numbers make it one of the world's most profitable companies, beating the mere $42.5 billion earned by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. 17% is how much one comment from Elon Musk can move Bitcoin. That was the plunge after he said you wouldn't be able to use it to buy Tesla cars after all. Musk says he's now worried about the environmental impact of all the energy used to produce virtual money. And $151 billion is how much Samsung Electronics will invest to help tackle the global chip shortage. It and other big names in South Korea are pouring big money into new production. Around 153 firms plan to invest a total of about $450 billion. The government will lend a helping hand with tax breaks.
A judge in the Sicilian city of Catania ruled on Friday that the head of Italy's right-wing League party, Matteo Salvini, should not stand trial over allegations he kidnapped a group of migrants by refusing to let them disembark from a ship. The case is centred on an incident in July 2019 when Salvini, who was then the country's interior minister, blocked more than 100 people aboard the Gregoretti Coast Guard ship for 6 days as he waited for European allies to agree to resettle them. During his 14 months as interior minister, he stopped several boats from docking in Italy in an effort to halt migrant flows, and regularly accused the charities that operated them of effectively encouraging people smuggling. The Catania case is similar to a separate investigation in the Sicilian capital Palermo of migrants who were kept aboard another boat a month after the Gregoretti incident. However, in a completely contrasting decision, a judge in Palermo last month ordered that Salvini should stand trial over the allegations. He could face up to 15 years in prison if found guilty. The trial will begin in Palermo on September 15. Prosecutors in Catania had asked the judge not to send Salvini to trial, saying his decision did not violate international treaties and was not to be considered kidnapping.
The US is still recovering from a hacking attack on oil pipeline operator Colonial. That has caused rising prices and gas shortages in parts of the country. Now Friday sees news of another so-called ransomware attack. Japan's Toshiba says one of its units in Europe was targeted, and it's blaming DarkSide, the same group said to be behind the Colonial incident. French subsidiary Toshiba Tech Corp said it lost only a minimal amount of data on this occasion, and no data leak had been detected. But it's the latest evidence of a growing wave of ransomware attacks. They see hackers encrypt data and demand money to decode it. Sometimes they also threaten to publish stolen data. Champagne maker Laurent Perrier is among other French firms to be targeted this year. US investigators say DarkSide includes Russian speakers and never targets firms in the former Soviet Union. Russia has rejected all suggestions that it has any connection to the hackers.
American consumers spent less at stores last month. U.S. retail sales unexpectedly stalled in April as a boost from stimulus checks faded. The Commerce Department said Friday sales were flat following a nearly 11% surge in March. Economists had expected sales would increase modestly. Once you strip out the impact of volatile items like food, gas, and autos, the so-called core retail sales dropped 1.5% from a rise of over 7% in March. The weak sales data could raise anxiety about the economic recovery. Consumer spending accounts for more than two-thirds of economic activity. Fears about the virus linger, keeping many workers at home. And hiring slowed in April amid a shortage of workers. But retail sales are likely to pick up in the coming months amid record savings and a reopening economy. Households have accumulated at least $2.3 trillion in excess savings during the health crisis, and that should underpin spending this year.
Washington was running out of gas on Friday, even as U.S. officials assured Americans that supplies would return to normal soon. The 6-day Colonial Pipeline shutdown, the most disruptive cyber attack on record, has prompted widespread panic buying. It's left many gas stations across the Southeast empty and customers scrambling to fill up their cars. As social distancing restrictions ease and more Americans hit the road, pump prices are at their highest in years. The national gasoline average has climbed to over $3, the most expensive since 2014, according to the American Automobile Association. Colonial Pipeline, the country's largest fuel network, announced Thursday it had restarted its entire system and was ramping up deliveries. By Friday, a Colonial spokeswoman said the pipeline was shipping at normal rates again, but gas outages have persisted.
I'm going to have to fill up probably again before getting to North Carolina. There's a big-time gas shortage there, so I'm going to probably have to fill up on the way as well.
The Wall Street Journal and New York Times reported Friday that DarkSide, the hacking group blamed for the pipeline attack, announced it would be shutting down. DarkSide said it had also hacked 4 other companies, including a Toshiba subsidiary in Germany. Colonial has not determined how the initial breach occurred and hasn't disclosed whether they paid the hackers. Bloomberg News reported that it paid nearly $5 million. U.S. lawmakers have reintroduced legislation in the wake of the cyber attack to secure pipelines and pipeline facilities from cyber attacks.
Honda is the latest firm to say it's paying a price for the global shortage of computer chips. On Friday, the Japanese company said the silicon drought affected 100,000 vehicles last year, and it predicts the problems will persist through the first half of 2021. Overall, the shortage could cost the global auto industry $110 billion in lost revenues this year. That is according to an estimate by consultancy AlixPartners. It says the crisis will hit production of 3.9 million vehicles. Volkswagen, Ford and General Motors are just some of the big names to cut or suspend some output. Now AlixPartners says firms will have to respond by building stronger ties to chip makers. Automakers have been reluctant to make long-term commitments on chip supply for fear of being stuck with financial liabilities over such agreements. But the consultants say the risk of losing production to shortages has changed the equation. Other responses are possible. This week, Ford said it was redesigning some parts to use chips that are more readily available. Expensive batteries are one reason why electric cars cost more to buy. That has Tesla thinking. Reuters sources say it's in talks with Chinese firm Eve Energy. It wants to procure cheaper cells from the company. Eve makes batteries using lithium iron phosphate, or LFP. They're cheaper than the usual type, which use more expensive nickel and cobalt. There's a catch, though, as the LFP cells don't offer as much range on a single charge. Sources say the talks are advanced and a deal could be struck in the third quarter. Eve is reportedly already running late-stage tests for Tesla. The electric car pioneer faces mounting cost pressures and new rivals including Chinese makers like NIO. Earlier in the year, founder Elon Musk said Tesla would shift some vehicles to alternative battery technology amid concerns over the supply of nickel.
Walt Disney shares fell in early trading Friday after the entertainment giant streaming service posted disappointing quarterly growth. Subscribers to Disney Plus totaled over 103 million as of early April, but that was nearly 6 million short of Wall Street's targets, and the average monthly revenue per paid subscriber fell. Disney Plus had benefited from a streaming boom last year from consumers stuck at home amid the health crisis. Analysts say the slow subscriber growth was a speed bump, saying a slate of superhero films and sci-fi thrillers will attract new fans. CEO Robert Chapek said new offerings would help lure customers to Disney's various streaming services. The company also plans to launch Disney Plus in Malaysia and Thailand in June. The week's streaming results overshadowed the company's strong profit growth. Adjusted earnings crushed analysts' expectations. Profit rose at its TV networks, while its theme parks unit posted an operating loss. But the company reopened Disneyland in California in late April, and Disney says reservations at its U.S. parks were strong.
These were the top headlines for today. Stay safe and goodbye.